I've thought about this game so many different ways, and yet, in the end, it all comes down to just one word for me: attack. That's what the Georgia Bulldogs have to do Saturday night against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And there are a lot of ways that they can do it. And we're going to get into all those things tonight. It's about us. Not in my box. Not today. I'm about to whip his. That's how it goes. I've thought about this game so much that if you asked me who is going to win between Georgia and Alabama, what's it going to come down to? That's what this discussion tonight is going to be. We are going to walk through what I see as the keys to the game, the questions that have to be answered, and then who's going to answer them, how, and if those things are done, Georgia walks away with a big win on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Over the course of this week, all you had to do was ask me who was going to win, and I would tell you. And then 15 minutes later, ask me again, I'll tell you. Probably not the same team, because I've gone back and forth on it so many times. But there's a good reason for that. It's because this is a coin flip game. I mean, these two teams, people don't talk about them the way they talk about them for no reason. But what we know about this game is that it is proving time. It is time for Alabama to show us who they are. Because frankly, I'm not sure we know. It is time for Carson Beck and the Georgia Bulldogs to be the quarterback and the team that we all believe them to be. It's time to show me.
It's time to go. You want it? Show me.
That's what it comes down to. Somebody's got to set the tone, and they have to do it immediately. Just like Kentucky set the tone last week against Georgia. You said what you want about Kentucky. They had been dog water. They had been run down by the nation, by their fan base, by everybody in the lead up to that game against Georgia. And one thing was certain, they were going to come out with blood in their eyes, and Georgia was going to know that they were playing a football game inside the SEC that night. Georgia came out flat-footed, never got caught up. They did enough to win, but they never got to where we all thought they should be. They were on the back foot all night. That's exactly what Georgia has to do against Alabama in Tuscaloosa Saturday night at 7:30. From the minute they flip the coin, from the midfield handshake, somebody's got to set the tone. Set the tone, boys. Somebody's got to set it. That's what it is. Blood in your eyes, snot bubbles, for as long as it takes. I'm old enough to remember when Georgia went to Alabama in 2002, and they were told they weren't man enough to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. It's not the same scenario. But in a lot of ways, and certainly among dog fans, there's this feeling of being wounded, maybe even unsure, that the castle on the hill that we've watched Kirby Smart build during his time in Athens is more of a mirage than it is that stone castle that we believed it to be. This is the game where you show up and you leave no doubt. This is the game where forget Alabama, forget Tennessee, forget Ole Miss, Nobody gives a damn about Texas. Dog fans want to see Kirby Smart and his team show up in Alabama and play the game the way we believe they are supposed to play the game. And these are not unreal expectations for us to have. Why? Because the head man himself has told us over and over and over, that's who we are. Those young men have told us the same. That is who we are. This is a show me game. This is a show me game. Georgia and Alabama. Alabama just happens to be the team that the Dogs are going to step on the field with on Saturday night. But it doesn't even matter. Everybody is trying to make this game about everything else, especially if you are a Georgia fan. I've heard you. I've seen you in my comments. I know what you think. I know that this game has to play out a certain way for us to be happy. This is a spot in the season where Georgia has said all the right things. It's another game. We can't wait to get back out on the field. When asked about Alabama directly, that's a great team. It hurt losing last year. We just put our heads down and went to work. Oh, their quarterback had some things to say about us. He had some things to say about us quitting, about us not being down for the fight, about us not believing. He had some things to say. All right. We just went to work. Well, I know he said it. Doesn't matter. The players are saying all the right things. Kirby Smart is saying all the right things. What does it mean if you go into Tuscaloosa on Saturday night and beat Alabama? That means we got to turn around and play another tough SEC game the next week. And he's not wrong. I mean, no lies detected here. He's saying the right things. But I believe that we all know that those players and Kirby Smart also feel what Dog Nation feels. But again, that's just the sprinkles on top. That's just the extra flavor. It doesn't matter who's on the field Saturday. Georgia has to play like Georgia on Saturday night. If they play like Georgia, they're going to have a good chance to win this game. But it's like I told you, I see this as a coin flip game. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the University of Alabama and their football team. But it really don't matter. If Georgia wins, there's going to be all kinds of, chocolates and cherries on top here that's going to make this super sweet for we in the fan base. But Georgia better figure out who Georgia is. That's what I have to see on Saturday. And the cold hard truth is we might get to the end of the game. Alabama might have won, and we're going to know that Georgia is not what we thought they were. It's not the end of the world, but it won't land well. I've talked to my Alabama people for, 2 weeks now, and they don't want to hear that I have real reservations about Georgia's ability to win this game, that I might actually pick Alabama to win the thing. And I might. But I do want to walk us through what it's going to take to get there, because Georgia is going to have to take on the most explosive player in the country on Saturday night in Jalen Milroe. And why do I call him the most explosive? I'm not trying to show disrespect by not saying the best quarterback. I'm not trying to show disrespect by saying he's a fantastic runner. I am trying to show him the utmost respect by saying it doesn't matter if you do everything right. That cat can still beat you. And Kirby Smart said as much And he can do it a bunch of different ways. I don't think there's anybody that's really going to argue with you if you wanted to take the position that Jalen Milroe is the best player, college football player on the field in Tuscaloosa Saturday night. That's who Georgia has to play. That's who they have to stop. That's who they have to corral, because you're not going to stop him. He's going to make plays. That's how this ends up being a coin flip game. He has the ability to put his cape on and then go out there and change the game. That's the simple fact of football. An athlete like Jalen Milroe, I mean, we all know what kind of athlete Brock Vandegrift was. We're intimately familiar. And what did he do the last time Georgia was on the field? Just enough to slip a tackle here, sidestep a tackle there. He was slippery, and it hurt Georgia. Pair that with a couple of schematic issues. Frustrating night to play defense against Kentucky last time out. Well, Milroe is all those things, but bigger, stronger, faster. So, Georgia absolutely has to figure out a way to corral that young man. And it's going to be hard to do. You could spin this thing 100 different ways, and we've seen it. That's what happens when you have two teams staring down a titanic battle like this with nothing to do but fill the space. If you're not a player and a coach, fill the space with all the what ifs and possibilities, and it can be mind-numbing. It's a kind of torture, I think. I think it's a little bit torturous for those who think they know a little something about the sport, because then you start to dissect it in a billion different ways that could happen, probably won't. They certainly could. But you get hung up on it. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to one word, and that is attack. Georgia has to attack Alabama in every phase of the game, including the mental part of the game. The book is out on Milroe. CKS, they know. Glenn Schumann, they know. They've got it on tape of what they tried in the past. They've got it on tape from what other teams have done to him. And then you're sitting back and you're going, yeah, but we've got pretty good players. And what if we do those things? Do you think we can be that successful? Probably. It's not a question of what they need to do. I'm not telling secrets here. You have to go get him all night. And if they want to turn around and hand it to somebody else, you have to punish them. And if those receivers, they want to try to run back there over the middle, good luck. Somebody's got to set the tone, boys. Somebody's got to set it. Which brings us to the question, who's that going to be? If the Dogs are going to beat Alabama, they have to be all that talk they do. They have to be about it. They have to go hunt. So eyes ahead, looking forward. That's what we have to do. Again, I'm not telling secrets here, not saying things out of school. You got to put your eyes on the goal, commit to it, and then follow through. And who am I looking at in particular? Jalen Walker. That young man's got it right. Right here, he knows. The coaches have finally figured it out too. We have to let him play and do what he's good at. To the point to where even if we move him around, us moving him around the defense creates such a problem for the offense that other players now have an opportunity to make a play. I thought that's what Michael Williams was going to be, but he hasn't been able to play. So Jalen Walker has been that guy. But now we're hearing that Michael Williams might be back for this game. Fingers crossed, everybody. Find some wood and knock on it. Because if he comes back and you've got Captain Chaos in a position where he can actually contribute, and then you've got who Jalen Walker has become also on the field contributing, along with C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, and those guys that can get there in a hurry and come with a bad attitude like Gabe Harris, that's a problem for opposing teams. Let them boys go hunt. Let them go hunt, because that's what it's about. There are times when it is that simple. See ball, hit ball, again and again and again. And what is it that Coach says? Make them quit. Make them want to quit. Now, all this talk during this time that we've had between the last game and the next game, I've done a lot of listening, not to Georgia stuff, because like I told you, I don't like to pollute my brain with what anybody else is saying. And that's not supposed to be a knock towards anybody. I mean, no disrespect. I just don't want to come on here and say something that I've heard somebody else say. I want it to be my thoughts, my boiled down vision of what I think is necessary. So I don't listen to a lot of Georgia podcasters. I listened to a lot of Alabama stuff over the last week and a half, though. And man, those Alabama folks, they are super confident. Why shouldn't they be? The recent record in the series, right? They've got a quality football team. They're at the 3-0 start. To this point, their offense, hands down, looks much more balanced than Georgia's offense. That defense, look at the statistics. Really good. Now, there's more to the game than statistics, but that tells you that, you know, they've got players. They're still Alabama. But I've got just all sorts of craziness out there on the internet talking about these dogs. And I've tried to share this information all summer about how this game was going to be a referendum on Kirby Smart. And just like I had been saying all this time, what's the national narrative this week? Does Georgia have a Nick Saban problem, or do they have an Alabama problem? Well, I contend it doesn't matter. There's a good possibility that Kirby Smart, this defense, is going to roll in there on Saturday night, and the only thing that's actually going to matter is not that it's Alabama over there. No, Alabama is just going to have the privilege of being the team that gets their ass kicked for 4 quarters physically by an angry Georgia Bulldogs football team. I think that's what has to happen, period. Now, Alabama has better players on the other side, right? They have a good roster. So maybe they won't wilt and crumble the way another team would. We'll find out. That's why they're going to play the game. But Georgia has to show up, and they have to play that way regardless of who's over there. It could just be that Alabama is the lucky winner. Now, that is not a declaration of who I think is going to win this game. That's the declaration of how I think it's going to be played. That's what I think is going to happen. But like I said, I think this is a coin flip game. And it's a coin flip because of players like Jalen Milroe. He can hurt you in a myriad of ways. He can do it with his legs, clearly. He can also do it with his arm. And what that does is it puts pressure on Georgia's defense. So not only do they have to play physical, fast, angry, they also have to be smart enough to defend all the different things that Milroe can do. And that is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, is to keep your head about you and play with emotion and be physical. That's what Georgia has in front of them on Saturday night. Dalen Everett, right? Julian Humphrey. All those questions about Georgia's back end. Show me that you are the guys that the coaching staff believes you are. Dalen Everett should show me that if they throw a bubble pass out there, he's going to blow it up. Julian Humphrey should show me that if they're coming across the middle or hitting those bench routes on the sideline or, a 9 route down the rail, show me, Julio. Show me. This is a prove-it game. Regardless of what the nation feels, I know what Dog Nation feels. Dog Nation needs you to show us. And that is not a lack of belief. We believe that's who you are. That is exactly why you have to show us. We have faith that that's who you are. That Kentucky was an aberration. The reason doesn't even matter. If we didn't have such a high standard for this team, Kentucky wouldn't have been such an issue inside the fan base. But now it's Alabama. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Alabama. They are just the next team. But this is a team that's going to challenge Georgia to the point that we can't be messing around anymore. You got to show us. And if you're going to play a team like Alabama, especially, this question holds extra weight because of what happened at Kentucky. Alabama is widely considered to be a team that could very possibly end up in the 12-team playoff. Ask their fans, they think it's a shoo-in, just like most Georgia fans think that Georgia in the 12-team playoff is a shoo-in, a guaranteed thing. I'm not going to argue that with you for either team. But what I will say is if you're going to take that at face value, that they are a college football playoff team, what do we know about being successful in the college football playoff? We know that you have to score. I admitted to it last week. I still own it. I expected this offense to be an explosive offense. Not so much because they had a superstar, but because I trusted the fact that their quarterback was coming back and he's a good player and that they should be able to put up 400 yards of offense, pushing 40 points a game. Because they had so many different ways to stress a defense. Run game, tight end game, wide receiver game. A quarterback making good decisions. A team that historically does not beat itself with turnovers and penalties and all those sorts of things. That is what you have to have. A performance that will allow you to score upwards of 30 to have a shot to win once you get to the college football playoff. Because you know those other teams, they may not be built like you, but they can score. Historically, look at the numbers. You do not win in the college football playoff unless you can put points on the board. How did Georgia beat Ohio State? They gave up some plays defensively because good offenses force you into bad situations and then they capitalize on it. But then Georgia had the answer. They could go out on the field and they had players that they knew they could count on to go score the football. And that's exactly what happened. Again, look at the numbers for this game. If you think that Georgia has a chance to beat Alabama, then that means you have to believe that they can score. That means that you have to believe that Carson Beck and this offense are going to be able to move the ball consistently and put it in the end zone when they have the opportunity. You don't even have to say it out loud. That's an assumption you're making against what, by all indicators at this point, is a quality Alabama defense. But you heard me mention it there for just a second. Who is the person that Georgia's going to look to and say, he's going to go get it? We got to have it. That guy's going to go get it. Who's going to be, for lack of a better term, the playmaker, the alpha? Who's that going to be on this offense for Georgia? Who is the next Brock Bowers, Todd Gurley? A dog of a player. And you know that if you give him the ball, they're going to make it happen. Who's that person? Do they exist? It can't be Carson Beck. He touches the ball in every play, but he has to have help. That's how I got to my predictions for this offense. I'm like, he will have help, and then he will distribute. But now I see 3 games in, that's great. But we need somebody who's got that dog in them, who's going to go make it happen. You need a conversion on 3rd down? Dominic Lovett, talk to me. Where are you? Colby Young, where are you? Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp. It doesn't matter who it is, but somebody's got to grab the situation by the throat and own it. Is it Trevor Etienne? Maybe. It's 3rd and 5. Playbook's wide open, run or pass. If that's Todd Gurley standing behind the quarterback, there's a pretty damn good chance you're going to give it to number 3. Because you know he's that guy. Is Etienne that guy? Because he hasn't shown it yet. Could be. Could be. Or is it Branson Robinson? Is he that guy when you got to have it? He's not alone. There are other options. Frazier, but he's a freshman. We saw in his use against Kentucky, he's probably not that dude right now. And it's probably not fair to expect him to be. But you see, there are players there. But in the pass game, I expect more from Dominic Lovett. He can do it. If Carson Beck is given time, 6 needs to be a primary target. Hopefully, the coaching staff can see that in practice, that 6 has shown them, get me the ball. I will get 3rd and 6. You need to play down the field, like against Kentucky. Who did they throw it to? That guy. That guy who ran the route, the exact same route that Brock Bowers was targeted on last year against Mississippi. They packaged it differently. But at the end of the day, 6 was running the route, 19 was running. That should tell you how much faith they have in him. Awesome. Go be that guy, Dominic Lovett. Go be that guy. Georgia needs you to be that guy. He's not alone out there, though. Dylan Bell, the guy I thought coming into the year was going to get at least 8 targets a game, 10 targets a game. If Georgia's offense is going to get right, one of these wide receivers has to do that. They have to be that dude. And then Carson has to be that dude that gets them the ball when that's the situation that dictates his choice. Pull the trigger. Let it rip. Put the ball in the hands of the playmakers that can make it happen. Georgia is at a bit of a crossroads right now, and I understand that this is only game 4. Technically, I guess it's week 6. But they have to figure out what we're going to do moving forward. Whether it's by scheme, design, what the defense was doing, cramps like it was against Clemson, Dylan Bell hasn't had the opportunity to have that happen for him. We saw who they went to when the game was on the line the other night in Kentucky. It was Dom Lovett. And I'm not even going to waste our time tonight talking about all the things that went wrong against Kentucky. I did that last week. All the errors, all the missed blocks, mental mistakes. I've mentioned it. That's it. We're moving on because I don't care about any of that right now. You had time over the bye week to dissect, self-scout, work on those things. Georgia, I need you to show up and be the Georgia that we all know and believe that you can be. Because Jalen Milroe and Alabama are sitting on the other side of this thing, and they're waiting to give you everything they got and challenge you in every way possible. Somebody has to set the tone. Georgia has to attack Alabama offensively, routes down the field, make that young secondary make football plays, test them on the edges, run the football. That offensive line has to carry their water, put their foot in the ground, and move people. This game is not hard. Who are you? What is in your DNA? Can you show up to Tuscaloosa, Alabama Saturday night with blood in your eyes, steel in your spine, and not be denied? Does it rain? Who cares? Is anybody watching? Who cares? This gets right to the core of everything that I believe in terms of football, having been a football player, having been around it my entire professional life. I'm just enough old school to say, I don't want to hear about any of that stuff. Not today, not in my box. I'm about to whip his ass. That's what it comes down to. You hit them and you hit them, or as Kirby would say it, you strike them and you strike them and you strike them until they don't want it anymore. That's what this game is on Saturday. And the Dogs, they better strap it up. Because just like I'm sitting here preaching fire, hell, and brimstone about this game, I guarantee you that there's some Alabama person on the other side doing the same. In my heart of hearts, I know what this game has to be. And again, I'm giving complete credit to Alabama because I absolutely expect that this is going to be a 4-quarter game that is going to be decided by the most mundane, trite responses. It's going to be decided by which team is more physically tough, which team is more mentally tough, which team does not beat themselves, who doesn't turn the ball over. Basic blocking and tackling X's and O's. I am about to whip you for 4 quarters. Simple. And extremely difficult to execute. But there's a lot riding on the line here. I do not see. I know I said you have to be able to score. And I mean that. Not only is Alabama's offense more balanced up to this point in the season, but they're also more explosive. But that's the thing. They're boom or bust. Big play, okay. Long, sustained, time-consuming drives, not necessarily their bag. But then you've got Milroe back there who can just sort of wipe the slate clean and beat you anyway. That's what he brings. He's not going to quit. The Dogs can hit him 20 times. He won't quit. That's not who he is. But you got to wear on him. You got to make him think, twice about pulling it down. You got to speed up his clock in the pass game. So maybe that deep ball that everybody says he is really good at, and he is, maybe that deep ball is a little underthrown because he's got a rusher in his face, and maybe that's an interception or a pass breakup. Or maybe he's moving too quickly and now the ball sails wide and lands out of bounds, or he overthrows his target. He won't quit, but you can impact him. And that's what that defense has to do. That's what Jalen Walker, Gabe Harris, TID, Michael Williams, Damon Wilson, Warren Brinson. Looks like he's going to be back. Smile Munden, CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson. Players, the Dogs have them. Cut them loose. The players need to cut themselves loose. Literally playing with their hair on fire. Max effort. Kentucky put that in their back pocket, brought it to the game against Georgia, and had Georgia on the back foot all night. That should tell you how powerful this mindset and approach to the game can be. In their heart of hearts, Kentucky knew they didn't have the manpower to line up and slug it out with Georgia. That's not a knock on them. It's a reality check. They knew that. Didn't mean they don't have good players. But then you gas them up. You get them to believe, like we're talking about here tonight. It's a different animal. Now, I've called this a coin flip game several times tonight. That's because Alabama is every bit as or more talented on the roster than this University of Georgia Bulldogs football team. So why wouldn't you expect it to be a push? Why wouldn't you expect it to be a battle? Just accept it. It will be. What's the difference? That killer mindset. I will not be denied. And if I have to break somebody, not literally, but if I have to break their will to make that happen, then that's what's about to happen. So yeah, Kirby Smart, Georgia. That's your job, man. Crank it up. Turn the knobs all the way up. Turn those dials. You said you don't have to do much to get teams ready to play this week. Kalen DeBoer said the same. You're both right. Because these players know. They know. They keep receipts. The question is, are they willing to do what they need to do to cash those receipts in? Because nobody's just going to give that to you. To hearken back to the early part of this century, is Georgia man enough to accept the challenge that I know Kirby Smart and his coaching staff have given them this week? Again, it's not even about Alabama. They just happen to be the team that's showing up next. And if you're a dog fan, that's where you look a little sideways. You kind of snicker and you go, oh, that's awesome. Because if you're like me, you believe in what this team is, what they have shown themselves to be. And when the going gets tough, that's what they're going to revert to. It may not be pretty. It probably shouldn't be. But that is what is necessary to win this game. They don't ask you how. They ask you how many. So it's time for Kirby Smart and Carson Beck, that defense, those wide receivers, to collectively look at the man in the mirror and say, this is who I am. And then go out in front of 10 million Saturday night and remind the rest of the college football world of exactly who they are. There was all kinds of scuttlebutt in the offseason about Texas being everybody's biggest game or up-and-comers inside the league, who was going to do this or that. And I'm not trying to diminish any of those games. Georgia's schedule is brutal. Brutal. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe in this football team. I had almost convinced myself that they were going to go undefeated. I couldn't do it. At the end of the day, I wound up saying, no, they're going to lose one, and it's going to be to Ole Miss on the road at the end of a long, stretch of very difficult games. That's going to be the one that's going to get them. But none of those games, when I look ahead, seem to be framed the way this game is. Because it's not a classic rivalry. Not a traditional rivalry inside the conference. Traditional powerhouses for sure, but not a rivalry. Georgia's rivalry is the Florida Gators. The Deep South's oldest rivalry, well, that's the Auburn Tigers. But just like Tennessee, Alabama is not a Georgia rival. But as Reese Davis said this week, it is a rivalry today because it's born of excellence from these two programs. They have earned the right to be on this stage. And now they have to accept the challenge of doing what it takes to be successful when everybody's watching, the lights are on, and the band is playing. So a coin flip game. I don't expect it to be extremely high scoring. I expect that there will be big plays on both sides. An ebb and flow that you would expect in a game of this magnitude between two very, very good football teams. Two teams with a lot of pride and a lot of history. But at the end of the day, I am going to lean on and believe in the same thing that I have leaned on and believed in every time Kirby Smart and his Georgia Bulldogs have had to face a top-tier opponent with everything on the line. And that is, it is not about what Georgia has done this week. It's not about what they did in the bye week. It's about what they have done every day for the last handful of years, to be certain. It is the systems that Kirby Smart has put in place. It is the belief that the players have in who and what Georgia is that I think is going to dictate how this team plays on Saturday night against Alabama. And at the end of the day, after going back on it more times than I can count, give me the Dogs 28-27. We have to look at the game the way the players look at it whenever possible. We have to not look at it the way a casual fan would look at it. No disrespect, but you have to be able to look at the game and see the full picture, all of the emotion, all of the work. Remember, this is what these young men have chosen to dedicate their lives to. I chose to dedicate my life to being a good communicator, to being a journalist, to being someone who seeks and speaks the truth. These young men have chosen to dedicate their lives to their athletic prowess, using the gifts they've been given, paired with commitment and dedication to go as far as their abilities will take them. And when you wrap yourself up in that, when that is your identity, everything matters. Internet trash talk between two fans over the last 2 weeks is just that. Internet trash talk. But Dylan Fairchild, Malachi Starks, those guys, when Jalen Milroe challenges everything that they identify as, it's personal. It's personal. Is that alone enough to win the game? No. But all those days between the end of last season and right now have been fueled by comments like what Jalen said. Comments that the national media have shared. It's just one of those things where, you know, it is who they are. It is who they are. And I think that's what's going to show up on Saturday night in Alabama. I think we're going to see the Georgia Bulldogs that I believe them to be. Until next time, y'all take care of yourselves. Take care of your friends. Take care of your families. Take care of each other. And go Dogs!
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.